Oh, good. Very good. Somebody is recording it, so that's
I
great.
I pressed it, Rabbi.
Thank you, Danny. I was about to go into it, and I knew you did it for me. Thank you, Danny. So,
You're welcome.
the first 5 or 6 slides, we're going to go pretty fast because that is definitively um, a review of last week. So I just love this cartoon. Um, how difficult are the Ten Commandments to understand in their intricacy? Well, we'll need a Supreme Court or something to interpret these. I just thought it was really cute. Is there a Supreme Court in traditional Judaism? Yeah, it was called the Great Sanhedrin. 70 rabbis that voted and made decisions about Jewish law. They were the ultimate authority. So there was a Supreme Court, the Great Sanhedrin. So let's continue. If you look right in front of you right now, you'll see that these are the Ten Commandments in Hebrew and English. And as I mentioned earlier, the Ten Commandments start with Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt. But regardless, we're basically familiar with numbers 2 through 10. You shall have no other gods besides me. You should not swear falsely using my name, God's name. Remember Shabbat. Honor your mother and father. Don't commit murder. Don't commit adultery. Don't steal. Don't bear false witness. And do not be jealous. Don't covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. So this is the Jewish Ten Commandments. And again, I wanted to emphasize that our first of the Ten Commandments is a statement, I'm the Lord your God. Whereas here, you can see in Christianity, the Catholic have, I am the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods besides me. That's their first. That includes our number 2. And the Protestants, they turn this 1b into 2a. You shall not make any graven images. So you see that how do they make up the difference? And that is, if you look in the Catholic way, you shall not be jealous of your neighbor for your neighbor's wife. You shall not covet your neighbor's goods. They split number 10, Jewish number 10, into number 9 and number 10. So that's the big differences between the three concepts of the Ten Commandments in biblical. And then again, I know I teach to you many times over the course of the year. It's really important that you are sensitive to which Bible in English you are reading, because every translation has an agenda. King James has an agenda. The New Revised has an agenda. Everyone has an agenda. So you got to be careful of the translation because their agenda is reflected in their translation, and their not only their textual translation, but actually things like commas and periods can make a big difference. So I in this slide, I showed you that something was really unique about the Ten Commandments, that when Moses came down off the mountain with the Ten Commandments, that he had been physiologically changed by that spiritual encounter, and that rays of light, Karan Or, came out of his forehead, out of his face. And we all know that Michelangelo, in his statue of Moses, he depicted them as horns because of a mistranslation that Karen also pronounced a little different with Segal's different, not cantillation, but actually vocalization, different vowels can mean horns, but it really means rays of light. But it also means like a foundation. For example, Karen Kayemet LiYisrael, Jewish National Fund Foundation. So the word has multiple meanings, but as we discussed last week, this is part of the contributing factor why people thought that Jews had horns. And last week we took a vote. How many people have ever had an experience of themselves or a family member that they've been checked by horns? And I was frightened. It was just, oh, it was horrible. How many of you said yes, they've had these horrible experiences of being either a family member or they themselves having been checked for horns? Then regarding when Moses came off the mountain, Mount Sinai, he saw the sinning of the golden calves, and the sin was so grievous to him that for whatever reason, did he lose his strength? Did he lose his temper? But as we all know, he brought the Ten Commandments, the 2 tablets down crashing. I showed this particular wood carving because how amazingly accurate. This was from a Yiddish Bible. It's called the Yiddish Bible. It was published in Amsterdam in 1679. And what's really interesting is that they're depicted in this rendering of how we got the Ten Commandments. We see many, many of the traditional textual references. So, for example, we saw the horns that blew sound and energized the entire community. Here we have Moses receiving the tablets on the top of the mountain. This is Joshua, and in the text, in the Torah, it literally says that Joshua was midway up the mountain waiting for Moshe to come down. Here you see there's a concept, sayag l'Torah, and God said, igvaltem, that means make a gvul, make a border, and don't pass the border. Then we discussed that these were the cherubs. This could be King David. We had big discussion who this gentleman was. Regardless, what really is important here is to see here it says Torah, Nevi'im, Uktuvim, which means the 5 books of Moses, the books of the prophets, and the books of scripture. The Jewish Bible is broken down into 3 parts. Well, what does this have to do with the 10 Commandments? Well, our tradition is that the first 40 days, God gave to Moses the totality of the Torah, and that the 2 tablets contained the Torah, prophets, and scriptures. And then when he broke them, he had to go back up. First, he had to acquire atonement for the children of Israel. Then he went back up for another 40 days and came down with the second set that he had to replace them. And according to our tradition, in the second set, it was only the Torah and not the totality of the oral and the written law. So that's an important concept when we want to study the 10 Commandments and what it means when we say the Torah was given at Mount Sinai. People say, yeah, but wait, it was just the 10 Commandments. Well, now you can understand this rendering here, this artistic rendering that specifically includes Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim is consistent with that particular attitude that both the oral tradition and both the oral law and the Torah, the written law, was given on Mount Sinai. The second Luchot only contained the 10 Commandments, as I just stated. That is why whenever the first Luchot are mentioned in the Torah, they're not called the 10 Commandments, they're called the 2 tablets. The first set are called the tablets, and the second set, after its destruction, was called the 10 Commandments. Now you understand why. And the verse literally says in Devarim, Hashem gave me the 2 tablets of stone written by the finger of God, and on them was written all the words which Hashem taught you. All the words? That means the entire Torah, oral and written traditions. Yerushalmi in Mishnah Peah says that this refers to the entire Torah, which was written on the first Luchot. However, when discussing the second Luchot, the verse says he wrote on the tablets as on the first one. What did he write? The 10 Commandments. Interestingly, I wanted to show you on the top, you have Moses with the 10 Commandments. Sorry for the English, I missed the most important part. This is Rembrandt's rendering of Moses. The earliest depictions of the tablets with rounded tops. Do you see that? Here, artistically, they're rounded, where here, Michelangelo has the tablets rectangular. I put it in a yellow rectangle. So rabbis, you're saying, well, what difference does it make? Well, it definitely doesn't make a difference how non-Jewish artists depict the 10 Commandments. In Judaism, however, you want to know what our tradition says about the 10 Commandments? Allow me to show you. We're going to get there momentarily. The Gemara in Shabbat 104a relates, inside of the final mem and the samech and the luchot, I'm sorry, forgive me. Inside the final mem and the samech and the luchot stood miraculously, since the luchot were engraved completely from one side to the other. So literally in the Torah it says that the words of the 10 Commandments were chirut. They were engraved into the stone. That means they permeated the stone. So you could turn it around and see the letters light going through them. So the only problem is that the mem and the samech, here's a mem and here's a samech, how could you engrave it the letter would just look like a square because, you know, what would keep this, when you engrave it, it would just look like a hole. So there was a miracle in these two, and every time the Samech and the Mem occurred in the Luchot, in the Ten Commandments, that miraculously they were able to levitate, so to speak. Gemara in Eruvin 54a says, certain letters having been engraved, the final Mem and the Samech, have interior voids. When hollowing out the letters, they would look just like open rectangles. I'm sorry for being redundant. Therefore, there was a miracle. Okay, we got that. I was verbally explaining what I had originally written. So here's something that's also very important that you have to understand, that when someone writes a Sefer Torah, every letter must be surrounded with parchment. No letters may touch each other. This is a great significance in the mystical understanding of the Ten Commandments. So every letter has to stand by itself. It cannot rest, it cannot touch, it cannot abut another letter. If it does, the Torah is not kosher. Whenever a song is written in the Torah, it is written with large gaps, and the text appears to be a brick structure. Sometimes in poetry and song, what is written between the lines is more significant than the text itself. The Torah itself is referred to as a song, it says that in Devarim, because there is so much written between the lines. So this is a very important mystical concept in Judaism. Sometimes you learn a lot more by what not is said and what not is written than actually reading the text. So here on the right, you have the Shirah, the song that Moses sang after the destruction of the Egyptians and our saving at the Red Sea. And on the left, you have the Shirah of Ha'azinu. Right before Moshe dies, he sings a song. So if you can see, space, mystically, the white areas of the Torah have tremendous meaning in Jewish mysticism. It's not just what you say, but what you don't say as well. So for example, if someone says to you, how's your mother doing? And the answer is, she will be better. What do you mean she will be better? So what's read between the lines? Literally read between the lines. And that is, she must be sick now if we're praying that she will get better. So sometimes what you don't say, what's not written, the white space means a lot and has hidden meaning. And that's conceptually what the Kabbalah is going about to emphasize, and you're going to see it in the Ten Commandments. So there's a very famous saying that there's 600,000 letters in the Torah that correspond to the number of Israelites that stood at Mount Sinai. However, you can count all the letters in the Torah, and they're actually 304,805, or approximately half. So that's a tremendous discrepancy. You know, if you take a test and you get 50%, you fail. So how come the numbers aren't even close? The greater number includes not only the letters we see, black ink against white parchment, but also includes the letters in white against black. The count of 600,000 includes both the black and the white letters. So let me show you. This is one of my favorites, and if you've taken many of my classes on mysticism, you will see that this is a perfect example of black letters and black on white and white on black. So here's the letter Pei in black. Can everyone see my mouse moving?
Yes.
Okay. Now, hidden inside the Pei is a bet. That is white on black. So you see here the letter bet? Here's the letter bet hidden inside. So now, and of course, let me see. I think I can successfully annotate, maybe. Let me see. No, it's not going to let me. Yes, I can annotate. So what happens is, I know many of you have seen this before, but if you look closely, here is an upside down resh. If you look closely, Here is a, wait, I can even do a different color. And here is a Daled. And here is another Resh. So inside each of the letters, we can now understand how, although we have this common teaching that there's 600,000, but if you literally to count just the black on white letters, it'd be 304,805. So this is a very important mystical concept that relates directly to the Ten Commandments. If a letter in the Torah has no space around it, the entire Torah is invalid, even though all the letters are complete, but they're touching each other. According to what we've just said, this is easy to understand. Although the revealed black letters would be complete, a hidden white letter would be missing. Those in the verse, white letters may not be seen when they fit into a Torah. The space around the letter isn't seen in its own right. It simply enables the black letters to be seen. Ooh, that's really deep. Perhaps the soul is here to allow another to shine, but that soul is integral. If a black letter lacks the surrounding white letters, the entire scroll is invalid. So sometimes you need that which cannot be seen, like the hidden bet, so that you can see the letter pay. But the bet is silent, so to speak. You have to like concentrate to see it. It's silent. It doesn't get front page news. It doesn't, it's not a Kardashian. Sometimes people who are quiet behind the scenes, they're the power behind the throne. So it's a very important concept in Jewish mysticism, and we see why even the white letters on black are very important in Jewish mysticism. In the Mechilta of Rabbi Ishmael, we learn, how were the Ten Commandments given? 5 on one tablet and 5 on the other. That's the classic understanding. However, in the Mechilta, it says there's a second opinion, that the 2 tablets, you can restructure the understanding and say that there were 2 copies of the Ten Commandments. So according to Exodus 19, the Ten Commandments were given as a covenant, a brit, a contract between Hashem and Israel. Brit, we always say the word covenant. We're a covenantal people. It really means a contract. We have a contract with God. When dealing with the text of a contract between 2 or more parties, it's customary. Well, I don't know if it's customary. I think it's legal. It's a legality. Each party receives a complete copy of the agreement and obligations, contracts, or covenant. So mystically, the 2 tablets really means 2 copies of the contract. This was the practice even in ancient Middle East. I didn't know about this until I was doing research. The most famous example of 2 copies of an agreement is the treaty between the Egyptian Pharaoh Ramses II, we all know who he was, that was the Pharaoh of the Exodus, and the Hittite king Hattusilus III, all approximately 1270 BCE. So let's look at the map. Here's the Egyptian Empire. This is the Hittite Empire. So what happened? An Egyptian copy was found in Egypt, and the Hittite one was the capital of Hittite in eastern Turkey. The contents of both copies were exactly the same. This is why there were 2 tablets, 2 copies, one for God and one for us. And they were both kept in the Holy Ark. So, a lot of times we explain to people, oh, it says in the Torah that the two sets of the Ten Commandments, the 2 sets of the tablets are in the Holy Ark. And the Rashi explains it was the broken 10 Commandments and the replacement 10 Commandments. Mystically, however, the Mechilta of Rabbi Ishmael proves that it wasn't 2 separate tablets, they were 2 copies of a contract. I know, for example, when I signed a contract with the synagogue, I signed 2 copies, one for me and one for the shul. Then the shul signed 2 copies, one for the shul and one for me. So there's always 2 copies. I have a copy and the shul has a copy because we have a contract. The shul gives me something, I give the shul something, and it's a relationship. And that's when the emphasis, now when you think about the 10 Commandments, you're going to think of it as a contractual agreement. In a contract, it's two-sided. God wants something from us as much as we want something from God. I see there are two chats. Let me just take a quick look. Hi, Rabbi. Just wondering why Israel was not mentioned in the first or any of the commandments. It is a contract. I think Israel, Zion, and Jerusalem are mentioned thousands of times in the Torah. So this is from Steve. So um, it's in the first person. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am the Lord, your God. So you're right. It could say I'm Elliot's God. No, it says I am. It's talking. It's in the first person. I am your God. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am your God. So in that case, you don't have to identify who you're talking to. Regarding in the five books of Moses, the first time that Jerusalem is accepted to have been mentioned is Malki Tzedek Melech Shalem, Malki Tzedek, the king of Salem. Whenever in the United States of America, whenever you're like Salem, what is it? There's a Salem, New Hampshire. There's a Salem, New Jersey. I know for sure there's a Salem, New York. Salem is Jerusalem. It's a shortened form of Jerusalem. But regarding Jerusalem and the rest of the Torah, it really doesn't show up until the time of King David, where actually it was the Hittim and the Yevusim. They actually called the city of Jerusalem Jebus, or Yevus. But later on, it definitely is changed to Yerushalayim. So very good, and subsequently as well. We can see, okay, let's see what else. Was there a second message? Okay, I think that's it. Let's move on. So this is what did the actual tablets look like? So in the Christian world, as I showed you before, Rembrandt showed the tablets rounded. And previous to that, the most famous sculpture of Michelangelo was Moses, and he also did King David. But if you remember what I just showed you a few moments ago, they were basically rectangular, literally like an Apple computer tablet. They were rectangular. How big were they? We'll talk about it in just a few minutes. Rabbi Isaac, Rabbi Yitzchak said, Harav Yitzchak, Rabbi Yitzchak said, that originally there were two rough-hewn sapphire stones on which God caused a wind to blow, smoothing them and transforming them into two tablets. Rabbi Yehuda said, no, they only looked like sapphire, but in reality, they were a completely novel form of creation, as they were the work of God. Remember, it says the finger of God made them? So God made something unique or special. Specifically, one of the Kabbalistic traditions says that he created the tablets for future writing on in the Garden of Eden. On the sixth day, right before Shabbat, he made the tablets in anticipation of him needing this, using it when the Ten Commandments would be written. Rabbi Shimon says they existed from before creation. That means even before the first day. And they were perfected on the sixth day. What were they made from? Supernal, heavenly dew, which issues forth from the Holy One, blessed be he. Rabbi Yehuda says the luchot were pierced. That means the engraving went through them. The writing could be seen from either side, an engraving within an engraving. Rabbi Ava says you could see from one side to the other side and read what was written on it. Engraven all the way through, the letters that make a closed loop were miraculously held in place, floating in space. The samach and the mem, the final mem, they were miraculous because the way, otherwise they would just look like a hole. It wouldn't look like the letter mem. So why did I use these pictures? So if you look at the top left, the top photograph, there's a Jewish website that you can buy this rendering of the Ten Commandments. It's Hebrew, but it uses an ancient font. Once you become familiar with the font, it's really easy to read. But this is one of the two sapphire tablets containing the Ten Commandments, miraculously appearing in the interior grain of the gemstone. Biblical law growing naturally within gemstone reveals that the creator of the universe and religion is one being. So the reason why I show this to you is that the top picture is trying to visualize the mystical explanation of what it looked like when the Ten Commandments came down. The bottom is, I'm sure many of you have seen this. I have one my desk at shul. It's actually the Shema written in it's laser printed inside an acrylic presentation square. And when you turn it around, it's like a hologram. And that's what you can do on the bottom. That bottom picture, I will always love you on the bottom. When you rotate that piece of acrylic glass, you can see this, like this couple, you would see them as you turn the glass all the way around. And that, according to the Gemara, according to Kabbalah, that's what the Ten Commandments look like. There's only one problem. If this is I'm showing you the front of my hand. If I turned my hand like this, you're looking at the back of my hand, the letters would be reversed. So one of the great mystics in the Zohar, explained, Rabbi, according to our tradition, was Rabbi Shimon, explained that that was one of the miracles, that when you looked at it backwards, it still looked like it was forwards. Backwards and forwards, the Ten Commandments were the same. Now, the Ten Commandments consist. So I didn't review my lecture from last week, but Michael I said there's 620 words, and Michael corrected me. Michael, how many words are there? 178, I think you said?
I think so.
Right, I think you're right. So this happens to me late at night. After 6:30, I start losing my capacity to be as sharp as I should be, like I am, like 8 a.m. in the morning. But if you count the letters, Michael was right. It's not 620 words, it's 620 letters. This corresponds to Keter, the crown, which has a numerical value of 620. How do you say crown in Hebrew? Keter. So if you look real closely, let's go to the letter Kaf. Kaf is, see it here, is 20. Taf is 400. And Resh is 200. So the word Keter, which means crown, is 620. That's the same exact number of letters that are in the Ten Commandments. Now, we all know that there's 613 mitzvot. If you start on Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, and go through the entire 5 books of Moses, all the way to Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 28, when the Bible ends, and every time you come to a commandment, you have 2 columns. One for positive commandments. You shall love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's a positive commandment. Do not kill. Do not kill. That's a negative commandment. So if you add them all up, they're exactly 248 positive commandments and 365 negative commandments. You add them up, there's 613 commandments. Now, before we received the Torah, there were the 7 laws of the children of Noah. Before Moses received the commandments, there were 7 laws. Noah got off the ark, and God said, now you have to teach the world to be righteous. The righteous of the world have to observe 7 commandments. Don't deny God, don't curse God, don't commit murder, don't engage in inappropriate sexual behavior, do not steal, do not cause suffering to animals, and abide by the courts and laws of the land you live in. Now, 613 plus 7, 620. So it's fairly obvious that the Ten Commandments were more than any other part of the Torah, contains the mystical dimension of the totality of the cusp of the physical world and the spiritual world and the laws. So 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach represents the physical world, and the Jewish world, the more spiritual, elevated concepts of Torah, is 613. So what do you mean, Rabbi, 7 is the natural world or the physical world? When God created the world, he used the number 7 for the classic nature everyday life. That's why there's 7 colors in a rainbow. That's why there's 7 notes in a musical scale: do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. That God created the world with the number 7 Do you ever wonder why there's 7 days in a week? Why not just do 3 10-day weeks? Because God decided the unit of the natural world, of the regular secular world, was going to be 7. And that's why there's 7 mitzvot, the 7 commandments of the children of Noah. The 2 tablets represent the first commandments between God and man. And the second tablets contain the laws of between man and man. And the rabbis explain that there is a direct corollary between 1 and 6, 1 and 6, 2 and 7, 3 and 8, 4 and 9, and 5 and 10. I'm sorry, Mike, did you have a question?
No, I'm sorry. No, I didn't.
Okay. So I'll give you an example about how does I am the Lord your God have to do with do not commit murder? The answer is, I am the Lord your God. I made you. I made everyone. You have no right to break something that doesn't belong to you. Everyone belongs. So, for example, if I own a car, you're not allowed to come and smash my car. It's not yours, it's mine. Don't commit adultery. Adultery means you have, what's the correct term? Not from, I forget, oh gosh, begins with an F, to be loyal to, come on guys, yell it out. So you have to have
faithful.
It begins with an F, familiarity.
Faithful, no?
No, it's not, that's not the word.
No?
I'm surprised that you have such brilliant people in this class now, and you're not helping me out here. So don't commit idolatry, and don't commit adultery is very similar. When you bow down to another God, you're not being faithful to God. And when you cheat on your spouse, you're not being faithful to your spouse. Okay? So wait, Rabbi, that's a stretch number 3 and number 8. Do not take God's name in vain and do not steal. Well, guess what happens when you get caught? What do you have to do? You have to swear you're innocent. What about, let's skip to number 5, honor your mother and your father. What does that have to do with being jealous? So the idea is that when you honor your mother and your father, you acknowledge your relationship with them, that they gave you life, and that you owe them we live in, this Time magazine and Newsweek. Yes, I know they're not necessarily in print anymore, but one of their last editions was all about the me generation, about kids who have this attitude. They're in their 30s. You brought me into this world, and therefore you have to pay for my college. You brought me into this world, so you have to help me buy a house. And you brought me into this world. It's a generation of entitlement. Honor your mother and father is just the opposite, where we acknowledge that we owe everything, that is based on everything we've gotten from our parents. So when you covet, that means what you have isn't enough. You want what somebody else has achieved. You want something that somebody else has. So that's the rabbis explain there's a direct correlation between the first 5 and the second 5 in proper order. No questions yet, so I guess I can keep on going. Whoops. Yes.
Wait.
Okay, Rabbi, what about the honor the Sabbath and do not bear false witness?
So one of the things we sing is that Shabbat is Oti Le'olam. What is Oti Le'olam? It is a sign. It is a symbol. It is a statement. And it says that he who observes the Sabbath bears witness to the realm of God. So that means you testify. It's a brit, it's a contract. So when you bear false witness, you are lying and bringing false testimony. So that's
Rabbi?
Yeah.
I think very interesting here, because we were saying that one side is between men and God and the other one is between men and men. And then we have honor your father and mother on the side of God.
So there's 3 partners in creation and in you. God and your mother and your father. They made every person. So that's you know, everyone's, oh, my mother and my father and God made me. So that's why honor your mother and your father. You got to honor the total partnership, and that's why it's on the God side. Excellent point. Okay, when we cube the dimensions, so I should have put in a slide that in the Gemara it says that, let me go back. So you see this cube? So in the Gemara it says it was 6 tefachim. This is a tefach, the height of your closed palm. So it was 6 by 6 by 6. It was a cube. And that's why if you do 6 by 6 by 6, it comes out to 216 handbreadths, tefachim. This number equals the spelling out of the ineffable name using yuds, otherwise known as the aleph bet, the abe, the numerical value of 72. So viewing this number in the 3 dimensions of the tablet, you arrive at 3 times 72, because there's, it's cubed. This number corresponds to the number of letters, 3 times 72, in each verse of the 3 consecutive verses in verses 19 through 21. So what you see here is that this is the chart of the verses. And here you can see the frequency of the letters, and each one of the letters corresponds to the proper number. And then it all comes out to, if you do the mathematics, it comes out to 216, which is 6 by 6 by 6 is 216. And that's the number of yuds that appear in the numerical value of the letters. The shape and size of the tablets upon which the 10 Commandments were engraved allude to the letters, as we mentioned again. So this is like, I don't like, even in Hebrew, especially in Hebrew, I don't like to write out yud, then a hey, then a yud, a vav, then a hey. This is the name of God given to us at the burning bush. Moses said, and if they ask me, what should I say your name is? So God says, my name is Ehiyah Asher Ehiyah. But after that, we refer to it in English. I don't mind saying it in English because there's no J in Hebrew. And it's, it's not the proper term, but Jehovah. So it's really Yud, then a Hey, then a Vav, then a Hey. And I pronounce it that way, and I write it with a kuf because I just don't like writing the ineffable name. That's God's most holiest name, and we're not supposed to take God's name in vain. We're not supposed to write it. That's why we say Hashem. When we practice a bracha, we say Baruch Atah Hashem, because we don't want to say God's name. The number 10 corresponds to the letter Yud of that right here, right? I put it in yellow, but here's the first Yud over here. The 5 commandments engraved on either side of the tablets corresponds to the letter Hey. So this would be a Hey, and this would be a Hey, because there's 2 of them. And the Vav represents by the height, width, and thickness of the tablets, which was 6. Vav is a 6, which were 6 handbreadths each. Therefore, the numerical values of the letters Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, 10, 5, and 6, responsively, comes out to 26. But Al Pi Hashem, 216, if you add it up this way, how was it given? Al Pi Hashem, by the mouth of God. God spoke it. So if you take it, Al Pi Hashem is 190, or Dor, which means the light of the generations. What happened? 216. By Ibn Soa, Aaron, also 432. And if you add up all these numerical numbers, you see that it all is multiples of this 216, which is the 6 times 6 by 6 by 6. So that's what I have for tonight's class. And that included the, I know we have 15 minutes to go, but I thought that there'd be more questions. Does anyone have any questions for me? I have a question for you guys. Where in the secular world do you find the 10 Commandments? Here in the United States. Where have you seen the 10 Commandments?
In front of the courthouse in Alabama.
Courthouse.
George, isn't it accurate? Isn't there this Ten Commandments in the Supreme Court on the top of the Supreme Court building?
I believe so.
Yeah, I don't know.
I can tell you that the Lady Justice is holding the Ten Commandments and
I
a
believe
scale,
so, yeah.
Right,
and she's also blindfolded, right?
right.
Okay, but is it only the the court in Alabama?
I know they made a big deal about having that.
Right. Right. Um, you know, there's discussion about the ACLU, which is heavily supported by Jewish charity. The ACLU is very adamantly opposed to prayer in schools, separation of church and state. But it's very interesting that the Lubavitcher Rebbe, as far back as the early 1960s, was adamantly in favor of not only prayer in school, he was also in public schools. He was adamantly in favor of Bible studies in public schools. And the reason is religion is good. Everyone should learn the Ten Commandments. Everyone should, take private time and acknowledge a few moments a day their creator. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe was very adamant about it, and that there were many people who were really, really surprised that such an ultra-Orthodox rabbi as the Lubavitcher Rebbe would be in favor of the lack of separation in church and state, because the lack of separation in church and state usually doesn't work out well for Jews. In many, historically speaking, the more I don't want to say evangelical, but the more I'm trying to think. Sorry, guys, this is what happens close to 8 o'clock at night. The more a government or a culture became committed to one religion, the less good it was for Jews. So just the thought. If you think about it, perfect example would be Spain. Before King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella took over Spain, it was Muslims. It was actually Moorish Spain, and everyone had freedom. The Jews, the Christians, everyone had freedom, the Muslims. But then when King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella took over, they slowly got what? They got more and more religion. The Pope had greater influence on them. And inevitably, not only were the Jews kicked out, but so were the Muslims were kicked out of Spain. So all things saying, the more a government or a culture becomes dedicated to just one faith, the less freedoms and the less ecumenical that government becomes, that society and culture becomes. And how does that relate? That relates to the idea that if we all practice the Ten Commandments, if we were all given the Ten Commandments for the purpose of acknowledging what's the first one, I am the Lord your God, that the idea that I believe the motivation of the Lubavitcher Rebbe was that it would be a unifying factor and a reminder to children growing up that there is a God, there's a time to acknowledge him in daily prayer. On a personal level, many of you have heard me mention his name. His name is Dana Bienvenu. I have to reach out to him. When we were in graduate school at the University of Florida together, I'd been in yeshivas all my life. In fact, my undergraduate life was at Yeshiva University. So I really didn't have many non-Jewish friends at all, really. He was my first really non-Jewish friend. And Dana Bienvenu grew up a very religious Roman Catholic, French Canadian. Bienvenu was his last name, is his last name. And when we would periodically drive down to Miami, his family lived in Miami. We get into the car. I'll tell you why we were best friends. We were best friends. In fact, if you come into my office at Temple Menorah, you'll see I have a presentation flag. Dana volunteered, entered into the United States Navy, and fought in the first Gulf War as commander of an attack vessel in the Persian Gulf. And when he came back, he gave me his presentation flag that flew on his attack vessel, on his attack ship. So that's how close we were. I'll show it to you if you ever come into my office. I also have a picture of the ship that he was in command of. So that being said, when we would come to Miami, I'd have to stop off at the Catholic Student Center. He would run in and light a candle in front of Saint Christopher, the patron saint of travelers. We'd get into the car. I would pass over onto I-75. I forgot the Florida Turnpike. And guess what? I would take out and say Tfilat Haderech. I would say a prayer for the traveler's prayer. And that's indicative of how we were not, the same religion, but we were both very religious. And that was a unifying factor. Oh my gosh, till today, he is so pro-Israel. He is so pro-Jewish. He ended up marrying a beautiful Japanese woman that we were very friendly with in the University of Florida. Her name is Etsuko Kanamura. But the idea is that when I was in Asheville, North Carolina, my closest friends were other ministers. Because what did we have in common? The Ten Commandments. A belief in God, a dedicated, time of day where we would pray to God, etc., that the Ten Commandments can be a unifying factor. Godliness can unify people. And I think that in itself is a great way to heal the world of all this sorrows that we're in now. I think that we should all remember that we do share the same creator, regardless if you're a Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, Hindu. I'm missing a lot, but you get the idea. Any questions? Anyone?
Having consulted Rabbi with Rav
Yes.
Google, Rav Google tells me that behind the Chief Justice is a depiction of Moses holding two tablets with Roman numeral numbers 1 through 10. And on the east side of the building, there is an engraved sculpture of Moshe Rabbeinu holding two tablets. Do not know whether it was Hebrew, English, Arabic, or etc. So Rav Google is helping us.
Thank God. What would we do without Rabbi Google?
Rabbi. Rabbi.
By the way, everyone knows Frank Kreutzer. I've
Sure.
introduced him many, many times. He's a great man who's very, very influential in me becoming a rabbi in the conservative movement. Yes, Michael, what was your question?
Okay,
I have-
coming back to the separation of church and state, is Israel slowly becoming a theocracy?
So my response to that is no, it is not slowly becoming a theocracy. Israel is a theocracy. It's a Jewish state, and it's based on the values, Torah values. Therefore, it is a theocracy that practices democracy, democratic policies. So, for example, there are free and open elections. Well, free and open elections has nothing to do with theocracy. They're not counterintuitive. You can be ultra Orthodox Muslim, so to speak, and still believe in democracy and open elections. So just because Israel's a theocracy, which is what, why I say it's a theocracy? Because it's based on the idea that God gave us the land of Israel. We are entitled to the land because we believe in the Torah. That means the Torah is a divine document. Therefore, my opinion, we are a theocracy, and I don't have problems with that. There are other nations that are based on religion. Like, for example, did you know Argentina is a Christian nation? And up until I think please correct me or check with Rabbi Google, but if I'm not mistaken, it was up until like 1980, you could not run for national party leadership unless you were a Christian.
Rabbi, can I show a picture? Can you let me show a picture?
Absolutely. Show me a picture.
Well, can you give me that video? Can you let me screen it?
Sure.
Go ahead.
You have to click on share screen.
How do I do that? Oh,
So move your mouse, and then on the bottom, at least it's always on my bottom, there's a green
It's on
button
the bottom.
that says share screen. Do you see it?
I'm looking.
Your other option is you want to show me a picture, or you want to show me something that's on your computer?
On my computer.
Oh, so you have to share screen.
Yeah, I'm gonna look for it.
Hold on a second. Let me see if I can. Hold on. Let me see if I can make you. I can make you a co-host.
Go
If
ahead.
you want
Chief.
Mike, yes, see if you can do it now, Mike. Move your
Yeah.
mouse and on the bottom, do you see share screen?
It's in green. It will be green.
It's a green button on the very bottom of the Zoom
It's a
window.
green square with an arrow up, going up.
I have a question.
All right, you keep on looking for it, Mike, and just whenever you click on it, you'll get that option to share your screen. Are there any other questions for the rabbi? Yes,
Yeah.
Miriam.
I don't know if you explained this during the lecture. So you said that the letters in the Torah have to be black, very well separated. And indeed, we can see some letters inside the black spaces.
I got it.
Is there any message? Can we read? You said we can read in between the lines, but can we read like we read the parasha every week?
The inside, you mean?
Yeah, can we read like through the inside? Are there things that we can read?
They make like a word or something when you read the
Yeah.
inside letters one after the
Yeah.
other. They are.
Can
Yes.
we read like we read the parasha? Is there anything that we can read also?
So the tradition is that, and then after this, Mike can explain to us that amazing photo they just put up. But
Yeah.
according to our tradition, that the first level of reading the Torah is called Pshuto Shel Mikra, which means the literal meaning. So, for example, when it says, "Thou shalt not kill," you know what that means? Don't kill. Don't take Pshuto Shel Mikra, the simple interpretation of that verse. But then there's the pshat, very good, which means the literal meaning. And then there are continuing levels of spiritual interpretation, all the way up to the highest form, which is that hidden within words, hidden inside the letters, and hidden inside the formation of the letters. So let me just see, give you an example. Let me see if I can annotate this. No, we have to, Mike has to share, and then I'll be able to show you what I mean. Okay, Miriam? Mike, tell us what we're looking at.
Can you see the picture?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you're seeing here is I was in a displaced person camp after the war. What you see, this was the Cheder in the 1940s, 1946, 47. This
Wow.
is the Cheder. I am right here, right there on the sitting one.
Can you point to it with your cursor, with your mouse?
Yeah, I am doing it.
We don't see it.
No,
So
we
you're
can't see
sitting,
your
you're
mouth
sitting
moving.
down. What
From the
number are
right.
you? From the left, from the left.
No, from the right, the second one from the right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can
Okay.
see.
I see you.
Wow.
So
Now,
Mike, where were you during the Holocaust?
In Russia.
In Russia.
Yeah, but wait a minute. I want to tell you the story about this. See, this is our Rabbi, and see, this is the kid next to the Rabbi there, standing in the back.
Yeah.
Right.
I found him yesterday.
Wow.
Wow.
We haven't seen each other for 70 years.
Amazing. How'd you find him?
It's an interesting story. Have you heard of a program called No Name, No Number?
Yes.
Sure.
From
Sure.
I was showing this picture from some kids, the yeshiva kids, and the photographer who said, I saw this same picture at another function. So the other function,
Amazing.
I found the person, a friend of mine who I haven't seen in 70 some odd years, right there
Where does he live?
Wow.
in Queens, New York.
So you're going to get together?
Of course.
Wow. Take lots of pictures.
Anyways, I just wanted to show you.
That's a great.
Michael, where in Russia was this?
I was for a year and a half in Siberia,
Jesus.
and 2.5 years in Uzbekistan.
Wow.
during the
Okay.
war. Yeah.
So what I wanted to quickly show
Rabbi,
you,
there's a chat.
yeah, what I wanted first to answer Miriam was that Miriam. So here you can see the pay, and inside is a bet. So pay means mouth. So if you look closely, the rabbis explain that the letters, the shape of letters in Hebrew is not meaningless. So what does that mean? Peh, the word peh in Hebrew means mouth. And if you look at the shape of this letter, here are the teeth, here is the tongue, and here is an open mouth. Do you see it?
Mhm.
Now, that being said, why of all letters is it a bet that is hidden inside the mouth? Why a bet? Why not a gimel? And the answer is, whenever you put a letter bet in front of something, it means inside.
Mm,
For
okay.
example, let's say garden in Hebrew is gan. Bagan means in the garden. So the idea is that it's not just what the mouth says, it's what goes inside the mouth. That, you just don't listen to the words, you have to listen to what's going on inside. There are different levels. So that's why inside, yes. Let's say, for example, let me think of a letter in general, but let's take the letter Zion. Okay, this is the letter Zion, and the letter Zion is made out of the letter Yud with a Vav. And you put the two together, you get the letter Zion. Miriam, do you see the letter
I see.
Yud? Okay, so the question is then, why would a Zion be made out of a Vav? A Vav, I'm sorry, let me first sorry. So of all the letters, why is it made out of a Yud and a Vav? And the answer is, you tell me, what does a Yud mean to you? What is the letter Yud? It's an
Hashem.
it's an abbreviation of God. So Zion literally means weapon, or and in fact, look what it looks like. The letter Zion literally looks like a sword with a handle, a scabbard.
Uh-huh.
It's a weapon. It's a Zion. It's a weapon. It's something of assault. So when you go to war and you use a sword, what do? It's Yud. It starts with, in Hebrew. Soldiers are taught in Israel about neshek tahor. Keep your use of your weapon holy. That means don't abuse your weapon, don't use it to assault innocent people. It has to be kept, it's a holy tool to be used for holy purposes. It's not something that you just for killing. Now, what's a vav? A vav is a hook that attaches, that brings things together. It's a hook. A vav is a hook. And that's why when you put the letter vav in front of a word, it means and. Me and you. Ani ve'ata. So the idea is that when you use a weapon, you have to have holy purpose behind it. You have to have godliness when you use a weapon. And what's your purpose of going to war is to connect, to bring things together with holiness and with God. So this only works, well, I'm not sure if it only works, but it's a part of the mystical teaching of the importance of letters in Judaism. So when you asked your question, when we read the Torah, can we see these messages in the words? And the answer is, if you concentrate and if you think about these things, you'll never have problems. Now, like someone showed me a meme, and underneath it says, once you see it, you'll never unsee it. There's a picture of a inappropriate behavior, but you had to look for it. And after you looked for it, you couldn't help it. Oh my, oh no, now I see it. Ugh. Well, this is just the opposite. If you look closely at the Hebrew letters and how they made up of other letters, you'll find holiness in the words. Let's see, there's a chat. Mike, we have a member of the shul whose family were child survivors. Her name is Esther Alteras Myers, and she is the sister of our Regina Behar. She wants to know, Mike, what displaced camp were you in?
Feldafing,
Say again?
Feldafing near Munich,
In Munich.
near Munich, Feldafing.
Esther, unmute yourself.
Thank you.
Esther,
I
you
just
were
was-
born in the United States, though, but
Yes, I was. But
Regina was
Regina
born
was in
Yugoslavia.
Yugoslavia, and eventually they were in DP camps, but they were, I believe you would say it was Yugoslavia at some point, but Italy for a big time period.
So Regina and Esther's father and mother were not only escapees of the Holocaust running around during escaping the Nazis, but Regina and Esther's father was a famous Sephardi rabbi. They are the daughters of a rabbinic family.
Regina is not talking. She's here. Regina, unmute yourself. You're muted.
Wish I.
She can't.
She's doing it. By the way, Esther
Yes.
continues in her family tradition. She is a Hebrew teacher, a Judaic studies teacher.
Yes.
We can't
Every
hear you
day.
yet, Regina. We can't hear you.
Yeah.
So we can't hear her. But Regina's other claim to fame now is she's my daughter's neighbor. Eliza
Yeah.
moved to Stillwater. In
Nice.
fact, she just moved there. She's her house was ready and she moved in for Shabbat. So that was a
Here
great.
she is, finally.
Regina, can you
Hello.
hear us?
Yes, I do.
There you go. We hear you too.
And I just want to say my parents were in their 20s when they were running in the mountains to save themselves and their two little children.
Yeah.
Eating St. John's bread.
Oh,
St.
really?
John's bread. That was our food.
Have you ever had it since the Holocaust, St. John's bread?
Yes, at Tu B'Shvat, you kind of have it around.
Boxer. Oh, Boxer, right.
And it has sugar in it. They feed the horses with that, right?
Right.
And that kept us alive.
When I was the rabbi in Asheville, North Carolina, there was a Dutch couple, Helen and Noah Benega. That was their name, Benega. And they fled from Holland. They were Sephardim. They fled from Holland. They went to England. And then the war followed them. There were buzz bombs and V2 rockets and the great escape from Dunkirk, and they thought the Nazis were just going to invade England. So as Dutch citizens, they got on a ship, which was very dangerous. The Nazis were sinking ships, and they went to the Dutch East Indies in the South Pacific. They were there 1 week when the Japanese conquered the island and put them into a Japanese concentration camp. And for the next 2.5 years, you know what they ate every morning, afternoon, and night when they did have food? Sweet potatoes. And what happened was we had them to our house once Thanksgiving, and Judy had sweet potatoes. Judy likes to make them like whole with butter and whatever, but they're whole on the plate and they're nicely whatever. And they're talking in Dutch, and they're talking in Dutch, and it's getting more and more heated. And finally, Dr. Benega gets up from the table, grabs the plate, and says, "You don't mind if we remove the sweet potatoes from the plate from the table?" And we go, "No." And he took it into the kitchen, and he came back and he told us that ever since the Holocaust, they cannot look at sweet potatoes because they ate it for 2.5 years.
Yeah, we had the same thing with my father with peas. If he saw peas, he would.
Really? Why? What was wrong
No,
with peas?
That's what they fed them
Uh,
at the labor camp. That's what they fed them because it filled you up, because it makes you feel like you're full and you're not hungry. So that's
Right.
all they fed them, like green soup of some sort.
all right, Chevra, have a good evening. I hope you all enjoyed
Thank
class.
you. We did. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you,
All right,
Rob.
great. Have a good
Good
evening,
night.
everyone. It's good to see
Everyone.
everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Lila Tov, Lila Tov.
So
Lila
Rabbi,
Tov,
tomorrow you're not
bye.
going to be meeting in the evening, right?
No, tomorrow night. Yes, that's correct. Tomorrow night I will be at Dr. Levine's house, but I'm not sure about Rabbi Josh. I definitely will be at the Shiva house. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Have a good
Okay,
evening,
I'll be-
everyone. Lila
Thank
Tov.
you.